Another day, another story. Pauli Murray, born November 20th in 1910, Baltimore, Maryland, U.S., died July 1st, 1985, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, helped define the intellectual foundations of the 20th century civil rights and women's rights movements. The legal analysis and research by the activist, lawyer, non-binary black feminist, poet, and Episcopalian priest formed the basis of the legal argument against the separate but equal doctrine in the case of Brown v. Board of Education. Welcome to Tabo Eminent Channel. Early life. Born in Baltimore, Maryland, Murray was a descendant of Black Americans, free and enslaved, Native Americans, and North Carolina slave owners. She was orphaned by the age of 6, a circumstance that she described as the most significant fact of her childhood, and went to live with her Aunt Pauline Fitzgerald and her maternal grandparents Cornelia and Robert Fitzgerald in Durham, North Carolina. From an early age, Murray bristled against Jim Crow laws, choosing to walk or ride a bike instead of boarding a segregated streetcar, and avoiding going to the movies rather than climbing the back stairs of a segregated cinema to sit in the balcony. After graduating from high school, she moved to New York City to complete another year of high school. Black high schools in North Carolina taught only through the 11th grade, before enrolling at Hunter College, where she was one of only 4 black women in an all-female class of 247. Not long after arriving in New York, Murray moved to Harlem and became immersed in the art and politics of the Harlem Renaissance, befriending poet Langston Hughes and attending lectures by civil rights pioneer Mary McLeod Bethune. During this time, Murray started to publish poems and prose and began using the name Pauli, a gender-neutral name that affirmed what she described as her he-she personality. Coming of age before the term transgender was coined, she was gender non-conforming in hair and dress and appealed, unsuccessfully, to doctors for hormone replacement therapy. Murray would struggle with the conflicting feelings of what she called an inverted sex instinct throughout her lifetime. Murray used female pronouns in her writing. Murray graduated from Hunter College in 1933 with a degree in English. 2 years later, she went to work for the Works Progress Administration, WPA. While with the WPA's Workers' Education Project, Murray met white students who were as deprived as black students, leading her to understand that racial struggle was part of a larger human struggle for dignity and equality. Later, she reflected in her autobiography, Song in a Weary Throat, Education and Career. In July 1943 U.S. Press, Franklin D. Roosevelt, FDR, was asked about racial unrest and confrontation in Detroit, and he replied, "I am sure that every true American regrets this." In outraged and visceral language, Pauli Murray critiqued FDR's dismissive response to racial violence with her poem, Mr. Roosevelt Regrets, which she sent to both the president and his wife, Eleanor Roosevelt. Murray's interest in race relations led her to apply in 1938 to the sociology department at the all-white University of North Carolina, UNC. She was denied admission because she was black. A note from the dean read, "Under the laws of North Carolina and under the resolutions of the Board of Trustees of the University of North Carolina, members of your race are not admitted to the university." Protesting this discrimination, she wrote letters to newspapers, U.S. Press, Franklin D. Roosevelt, FDR, First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, and the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP. The NAACP's Executive Secretary, Walter White, shared her letter with NAACP Special Counsel Thurgood Marshall, the first, but not the last, time Murray would come to Marshall's attention. Eleanor Roosevelt and Murray forged a frank and lifelong friendship that endured even as Murray forcefully challenged FDR over what she perceived as his insensitivity to racial discrimination. Denied admission at UNC, Murray went to work for the Workers' Defense League and participated in a 1940 campaign to save the life of Odell Waller, a black sharecropper accused of murdering a white farmer. The campaign failed, and he was executed in 1942. Committed to continuing her work to advance racial equality, she enrolled at the Howard University School of Law in 1941. Murray was the only woman in her class and encountered gender discrimination from both faculty and students. It was there, she later wrote in Song in a Weary Throat, that she became a feminist. I had entered law school preoccupied with the racial struggle and single-mindedly bent upon becoming a civil rights attorney, but I graduated an unabashed feminist as well. Murray labeled this gender-based bias Jane Crow. After graduating at the top of her class in 1944, she attempted to gain a further degree from Harvard University, but she was refused admission because she was a woman. Harvard wrote, "Your picture and the salutation on your college transcript indicate that you are not of the sex entitled to be admitted to Harvard Law School." In response, she fired back, "Gentlemen, I would gladly change my sex to meet your requirements, but since the way to such change has not been revealed to me, I have no recourse but to appeal to you to change your minds on this subject. Are you to tell me that one is as difficult as the other?" Harvard declined to change its mind. The law school admitted its first female students in 1950, even after a direct appeal from President Roosevelt. Murray instead received a master's degree from the law school at the University of California, Berkeley in 1945, after which she practiced law in California and New York City and traveled to Ghana to work at the nascent Ghana School of Law. In 1965, she became the first black person to receive a doctorate in law from Yale University, with a dissertation entitled Roots of the Racial Crisis, Prologue to Policy, 1965. In 1962, Eleanor Roosevelt asked Murray to serve on the Committee on Political and Civil Rights in U.S. Press, John F. Kennedy's first commission on the status of women. In 1966, along with such other feminists as Betty Friedan, Murray was a founding member of the National Organization for Women. The next year, she became vice president of Benedict College in South Carolina and later served, 1968-73, as a law professor at Brandeis University in Massachusetts. She developed Brandeis's first courses on African American studies and women's studies. Murray then entered the General Theological Seminary in New York City and earned a master's degree in divinity in 1976. She was ordained an Episcopal priest at Washington National Cathedral the next year, becoming the first African American woman to hold such a position. Murray served communities in Washington, D.C. and Baltimore until her death in 1985 from pancreatic cancer. In 2012, the 77th General Convention of the Episcopal Church named her to its compendium of prayers, guidelines, procedures, and descriptions of common saints, holy women, holy men, celebrating the saints, thus anointing her an Episcopal saint. The U.S. Mint honored Murray's achievements with her inclusion in its American Women Quarters program. Her commemorative quarter will be issued in 2024. Legal legacy. Pauli Murray led a remarkable life. Her contributions to legal jurisprudence, however, are especially extraordinary. A tireless advocate for equal rights for women and people of color, Murray formulated the legal arguments that undergird the most important legal rulings in the 20th century civil rights and women's rights movements. Thanks for watching. Request you to subscribe the channel.